I let my store go bankrupt just to find out which secret partner was sabotaging me. 3 years of building my business collapsed in just 3 months. I stared at the going out of business sign hanging in front of my boutique without feeling sad at all. My business partner stood beside me, patting my shoulder consolingly. "We tried our best," he said. I forced a tight smile, knowing full well that he was the one destroying me. My exclusive designs had been appearing in other stores one after another, and I knew exactly what I needed to do. The path to this moment had been painful, but the satisfaction of what was about to happen made it all worthwhile. My name is Sarah, I'm 34, and I owned a small fashion brand in Boston. Everything started 4 years ago when I quit my stable job at a major fashion company to pursue my dream. I had spent 8 years working for Luxe Fashion, climbing the corporate ladder from assistant to junior designer, but I always felt stifled by their rigid design requirements and focus on mass production. I wanted to create pieces that told stories, that felt personal and meaningful. With $50,000 in savings, money I'd carefully put aside for years while living in a tiny studio apartment and taking the subway everywhere, I rented a small storefront in an up-and-coming neighborhood and personally designed and sewed my first collection. I remember the night before my grand opening, sitting alone on the floor of my empty shop, surrounded by mannequins dressed in my creations. I was terrified and exhilarated all at once. What if no one came? What if they came but hated my designs? I had left behind a secure position with benefits and regular paychecks to chase this dream. My parents thought I was crazy. "Fashion is too competitive," my father had warned. "You're throwing away a good career." But I couldn't ignore the voice inside me that said this was my path. Each piece in my first collection carried my signature style, a blend of modern silhouettes with vintage-inspired details that you couldn't find anywhere else. I specialized in incorporating subtle nods to 1940s fashion into contemporary designs, structured shoulders, nipped waists, and hand-embroidered details that made each garment special. I sourced high-quality fabrics from local suppliers and ethical manufacturers, committing to sustainable practices even though it meant higher costs. That first day, I made only 2 sales, but the customers who bought my designs returned the following week with friends. My brand grew slowly but steadily. After a year, I had a loyal customer base, mostly young professionals who appreciated unique fashion. Women who came to my boutique weren't looking for fast fashion. They wanted investment pieces that would last for years and tell a story. I began to receive emails from customers telling me how many compliments they got wearing my designs, how special they felt. One woman wrote that she wore one of my blazers to a job interview and got both the position and questions about where she had found such a beautiful jacket. These messages kept me going during the lean months when I barely broke even. To meet the growing demand, I needed to expand. My tiny production setup in the back room of my store couldn't keep up anymore. I needed to hire seamstresses, increase my inventory, and possibly open an online store. That would require capital I simply didn't have. I was considering a small business loan when James appeared, an old friend from design school. He had taken a different path after graduation, going into the business side of fashion rather than design. We had lost touch over the years, but he had apparently been following my progress from afar. James walked into my store one Tuesday afternoon, dressed impeccably in a tailored suit. "Sarah Mitchell," he said, smiling broadly. "I always knew you'd make something of yourself." We spent hours catching up over coffee after I closed the shop. I told him about my dreams for expansion, the difficulties of managing everything alone, and my concerns about taking on debt. His eyes lit up as he examined my sales figures. "This is impressive for a solo operation," he said. "You've built something special here." The next day, he returned with a proposal. He offered to invest $100,000 in my brand as a silent partner, contributing capital without interfering with operations. "I believe in your talent, Sarah. You handle the creative side, I'll handle the finances. We're going to make it big," James said, his eyes full of enthusiasm. "I've been watching several independent designers, looking for the right investment opportunity, and your work stands out. You have something unique, a clear vision, and the skill to execute it." I was hesitant at first. My brand felt intensely personal, like my baby. Bringing in a partner, Even a silent one meant giving up some control. But the opportunity was too good to pass up. With James's investment, I could hire staff, expand my production, and finally launch the online store I'd been planning. After a week of consideration and consultation with a lawyer friend, I agreed. We signed a contract with clear terms. I would hold 60% of the shares and complete design control, while James would hold 40% and manage the finances. "This calls for a celebration," James said after we signed the papers. He took me to an expensive restaurant downtown, ordering champagne and toasting to our future success. "To Sarah Mitchell Designs, soon to be a household name," he said, clinking his glass against mine. I felt a surge of excitement and possibility. Maybe my father had been wrong. Maybe I hadn't been crazy to pursue this dream after all. The changes came quickly after our partnership began. We renovated the store, creating a more luxurious shopping experience with plush fitting rooms and elegant displays. I hired 2 seamstresses and a sales associate, which freed me to focus more on design. James set up professional accounting systems and negotiated better terms with suppliers. He even arranged a photo shoot with a well-known fashion photographer for our website, which launched with much fanfare and immediately began generating orders from across the country. Everything went beautifully during our first year together. The store expanded, we hired 3 more employees, and sales doubled. My fall collection was featured in a prominent fashion magazine, with the editor describing my work as refreshingly original in an industry of copycats. Online orders started coming in from across the country and even a few from Europe and Asia. James seemed pleased with his investment. "I told you we'd be the perfect team," he said, clapping me on the shoulder during our 1-year partnership celebration at the same restaurant where we had toasted our new beginning. I worked harder than ever, drawing inspiration from vintage fashion books, art exhibitions, and the streets of Boston itself. My winter collection that year featured wool coats with unexpected pops of color in the lining, dresses with subtle details that revealed themselves only on closer inspection, and hand-knitted accessories made by a collective of older women I had partnered with. The collection was my most successful yet, selling out several pieces within days of release. But then strange things began happening. A loyal customer named Rebecca messaged me with photos of another store selling designs nearly identical to mine, but 30% cheaper. I was shopping downtown and saw this. Her message read, "Isn't this your design? The quality looks different though." Attached was a photo of a dress that was unmistakably based on my newest design, one that wasn't even in stores yet, part of my upcoming spring collection that I had only finalized the previous week. I was shocked. These were my newest designs, not yet officially released. Only me, James, and my production team knew about them. The knockoff wasn't an exact copy, the fabric was clearly cheaper, the stitching less precise, and they had simplified some of the more labor-intensive details, but the overall design was undeniably mine. I immediately went to check out the other store, a mid-range retailer called Style Avenue that I knew carried multiple brands. There, to my horror, I discovered not just one, but almost my entire upcoming collection already on their racks, each piece a slightly degraded version of my original designs. My hands shook as I examined one of the dresses, noting how they had eliminated the hand-stitched elements and substituted a lower-quality fabric. The price tag was $89, while my original would retail for $250. An average customer might not notice the differences in quality, only the difference in price. My stomach knotted as I realized what this could mean for my business. "They're copying our designs," I angrily reported to James when I returned to the store, showing him the photos I had taken. He remained strangely calm, flipping through the images with an unreadable expression. "That happens all the time in this industry," he said finally, handing my phone back. "There's nothing we can do. Fashion designs are hard to copyright, you know that. Just focus on creating new products." His advice bothered me. This wasn't some vague inspiration. These were direct copies of designs that hadn't even been released. How had they gotten access to my work so quickly? But without better options, I followed his suggestion, accelerating production of my new collection and launching earlier than planned. I also added some special touches to each piece, hidden signatures in the embroidery, custom-designed buttons with my initials subtly incorporated, elements that would be difficult to copy and would prove authenticity to my customers. I sent emails to my client list explaining the situation and emphasizing the superior quality and uniqueness of my authentic pieces. Most of my regular customers were understanding and supportive, but I still noticed a decline in new customer acquisitions. But the problem didn't stop there. For my next collection, I was extra careful. I kept my sketches locked away when not in use, limited access to the production room, and even told my team we were working on a slightly different concept than what I was actually designing, a kind of misdirection in case someone was leaking information. Despite these precautions, within days of completing my new designs, nearly identical copies appeared at Style Avenue and 2 other mid-range retailers. It was as if someone had a direct line to my sketchbook. Our sales began to decline significantly. Customers weren't willing to pay premium prices for exclusive designs when they could buy similar items much cheaper elsewhere. Even some of my loyal customers admitted to purchasing the knockoffs for more casual use, saving my originals for special occasions. Each month, our revenue dropped further, and James started pressuring me to cut costs. "We're losing the price war, Sarah," he said during a tense meeting in our back office. "We need to reduce production costs, use cheaper fabrics, outsource more of the handwork." He slid a spreadsheet across my desk showing exactly how much we could save by making these changes. I objected strongly, pushing the paper back toward him. Quality has always been my pride. It's what sets us apart. If we compromise on that, what's left of our brand identity? James leaned forward, his expression serious. "What good is brand identity if we're out of business? We need to adapt to market realities. Even your precious loyal customers are buying the cheaper versions." His words stung because there was some truth to them. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right about this whole situation. How were competitors getting our designs so quickly? And why was James so quick to surrender to cost-cutting rather than investigating the source of the leaks? Reluctantly, I tried changing some materials, substituting less expensive fabrics, and simplifying some of the more time-consuming details. The results were disastrous. My loyal customers noticed the difference immediately and complained. "The new pieces don't have the same feel," one woman wrote in an email. "I've been collecting your designs for 2 years, but these new items seem ordinary." The brand's reputation began to decline, and sales fell even further. I was becoming desperate, spending sleepless nights trying to figure out how to save my business without compromising my vision. The stress was affecting my health. I lost weight, developed insomnia, and found it harder to create new designs. The joy was disappearing from work that had once been my passion. During this time, James remained strangely detached, continuing to push for more cost-cutting measures and faster production cycles. One evening, long after everyone else had gone home, I was reorganizing the filing cabinet in our office, searching for old insurance documents we needed for a claim. In the process, I accidentally knocked over a stack of James's files. As I gathered the scattered papers, I discovered a strange folder marked simply Project Forward. Curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it. Inside were my design sketches, but with notes about how to simplify them to reduce production costs, along with the name of another fashion company, New Wave Fashion, the parent company that owns Style Avenue and several other mid-range retailers. Next to my designs were calculations of production costs, projected profits, and notes about release timing. My heart nearly stopped as the pieces fell into place. James had been selling my designs to our competitors. He had been sabotaging my business from within, using his position of trust to steal my creative work and profit twice, once from our partnership and again from selling my designs to New Wave. The betrayal was so complete, so calculated, that for a moment I couldn't breathe. I thought back to all his calm reactions when I discovered the copies, his push to lower our quality, his access to every aspect of my business. He had played me perfectly. I wanted to confront James immediately, scream at him, demand an explanation, but my cautious nature held me back. If I accused him without sufficient evidence that would stand up in court, he could deny everything and I'd lose everything. According to our contract, if one partner wanted to withdraw, the other had the right to buy their shares at a preferential price. With my current financial situation, I couldn't buy out James, while he could easily take over my entire brand. I had to be smart about this. I carefully replaced the folder exactly as I had found it and went home, my mind racing. I barely slept that night, alternating between rage at James's betrayal and planning my next move. By morning, I had formulated a strategy. If James wanted to sabotage me, I would let him think he was succeeding. I would allow the store to appear to fall into bankruptcy, but it would be a performance, entirely directed by me. Meanwhile, I would gather enough evidence of his betrayal to take legal action. The next day, I began implementing my plan. I quietly contacted an intellectual property attorney, Amanda Chin, who specialized in fashion law. She was blunt about the challenges. Fashion designs are notoriously difficult to protect, but there are ways we can approach this, especially if he's violated your contract. I started registering copyrights for all my designs, including upcoming ones. While the designs themselves might be difficult to copyright, the specific artwork, patterns, and distinctive elements could be protected. I also installed secret surveillance cameras in the workspace, carefully hidden in light fixtures and bookshelves, and hired a private investigator to monitor James's activities outside work hours. The PI, a retired police detective named Mike, was expensive but thorough. If he's meeting with anyone from this new wave company, we'll know about it, he assured me. At the same time, I began a controlled bankruptcy. I deliberately made the bad business decisions James had suggested, cut quality, and let sales plummet. I stopped promoting new releases and turned down interview requests from fashion bloggers. Whenever James proposed a change that would further damage the brand, I immediately agreed. You're right, I would say. You understand the business side better than I do. He seemed delighted by my new compliant attitude, clearly thinking I had completely given up. As a result, he became careless in hiding his activities. I started working on a secret collection, designs that no one but me would see until the time was right. I worked on these at home, late at night, pouring all my creativity and original vision into pieces that represented the best of my abilities. This collection would be my phoenix, rising from the ashes of what James thought was my destroyed career. Sarah, you should try to design faster. We need a new line urgently, James urged one day, leaning against the door frame of my office. The spring collection isn't selling well. I nodded and promised to stay up all night completing a new collection, designs I had prepared in advance, but kept secret. These would be the perfect bait for the trap I was setting. I deliberately left preliminary sketches where James could easily access them, while keeping the final version secure. 2 months passed, and our store was genuinely on the brink of bankruptcy. Revenue barely covered rent. Our staff had been reduced to just one part-time sales associate, and the atmosphere in the store was depressing, racks half empty, displays uninspired. I played my part convincingly, coming to work in rumpled clothes, my enthusiasm visibly diminished. James suggested closing down and liquidating assets. We've tried our best, Sarah. The fashion market is too brutal. Maybe it's time to let go, he said with fake regret, placing his hand on my shoulder sympathetically. I agreed immediately, even suggesting a small farewell party for all the current and former staff. We should at least end this journey on a positive note, I said. During the party, I invited James to stay later to discuss liquidation details. I had informed Amanda and Mike about my plan, and everything was in place. When we were alone in the store, I deliberately left my newest design portfolio on the table, the bait, and said I needed to go out for more drinks. Help yourself to the wine, I called as I left. I'll be back in 20 minutes. As soon as I left the store, I met Mike in his car parked across the street. On his laptop, we watched the live feed from the hidden cameras. James waited exactly 3 minutes after my departure before approaching my design portfolio. He opened it slowly, his eyes widening at what he saw, my best work yet, innovative designs that would stand out in any market. The cameras recorded him photographing each page with his phone, smiling to himself. Then he made a call. I've got new merchandise. This store is about to close, but we can still make a killing with this final collection. These are her best yet. That night, Mike followed James to an upscale coffee shop in the financial district. There, James met with a woman and a man in business attire, the creative director and CEO of New Wave Fashion, as we later confirmed. Mike used a directional microphone to capture their conversation and took photos as they exchanged a USB drive containing images of my designs, along with a thick envelope. The usual rate plus a bonus, the CEO said. These designs could be our summer highlight. Everything was clearly recorded. Finally, I had enough evidence. I barely slept that night, a mix of anxiety and anticipation keeping me awake. Was my evidence strong enough? Would James somehow escape consequences? Amanda had assured me we had a solid case, but I wouldn't feel certain until it was over. I arrived at the store early the next morning and hung the "going out of business" sign in the window myself. It felt strangely cathartic. James arrived an hour later, barely able to hide his excitement beneath a mask of sympathy. "It's such a shame it had to end this way," he said with fake sadness, surveying the store with what I now recognized as satisfaction. "But don't worry, I've found a new job at another fashion company. Maybe I can recommend you for their design team, though it would be a step down from having your own brand." I smiled and nodded, fighting the urge to reveal what I knew. "Thanks, but I think I need some time off. Maybe travel a bit, rethink my career options." Just then, the doorbell rang. Amanda walked in with 2 police officers and a representative from the copyright office. "Mr. James Wilson?" one of the officers asked. "We have a warrant to search and seize evidence related to copyright infringement and breach of fiduciary duty." James's face turned pale as parchment. He turned to look at me, finally understanding what was happening. "Sarah, what is this?" he stammered. "Some kind of joke?" "The designs you sold to New Wave Fashion weren't just mine. They were fully copyrighted," I said, my voice calm but firm. "Each time you sold one of my designs, you violated intellectual property law. In total, 78 designs over 8 months. Beyond that, you violated our partnership agreement and your fiduciary duty as a business partner. The damages are substantial." I walked over to a decorative plant in the corner and removed the small camera hidden there. "And we have everything on video." James tried to deny everything at first, claiming a misunderstanding. "I was just showing them your work, trying to arrange a collaboration that would benefit us," he insisted, his voice rising in panic. But the evidence was overwhelming. The police found the USB drive in his bag, containing all my copyrighted designs, along with emails detailing his arrangement with New Wave. The representative from New Wave Fashion, faced with his own legal troubles, quickly confessed to the arrangement, revealing they had paid James over $200,000 for my designs over the past year. "You were supposed to be my partner," I said as the police led him out. "Why would you do this?" For the first time, James's smooth facade cracked completely. "Because it was too easy," he spat. "You were so trusting, so focused on your precious designs that you never questioned anything I did. Do you know how rare original talent like yours is? I could sell your work 10 times over." It wasn't personal, just business. As they took him away, I felt not triumph, but a profound sadness for what could have been a genuine partnership. The legal proceedings were lengthy and complex. New Wave Fashion attempted to distance themselves from James, claiming they didn't know the designs were stolen, but the recorded meetings proved otherwise. My attorney worked tirelessly, and eventually both James and New Wave settled rather than face a public trial that would further damage their reputations. The settlement included substantial financial damages, a public apology, and the return of all my stolen designs. 6 months later, I stood in my new, larger boutique in a prime location downtown. The settlement money had allowed me to rebuild even stronger than before, with improved security measures and a trusted new business manager, a former client with a background in ethical business practices who had approached me after hearing my story. The lawsuit against James and New Wave Fashion had actually boosted my brand's profile, and customers were flocking to support a designer who had fought for her creative rights. The secret collection I had created during those dark months became my Phoenix collection, marking my official relaunch. Each piece contained subtle design elements symbolizing renewal and transformation, a theme that resonated deeply with my own journey. The collection received rave reviews and sold out within weeks, with waiting lists forming for many items. "Your new collection is stunning," a fashion magazine editor told me during my reopening event, admiring a particularly intricate jacket with hand-embroidered details. "I've never seen such original work. There's something different about these pieces. They feel more personal somehow." I smiled, knowing that these designs had been created during the lowest point of my career, when I had nearly lost everything. They carried my determination and hope within every stitch. "Sometimes you have to lose everything, or at least appear to, before you can truly win," I told her. "These designs are special to me. They were created when I had nothing left but my creativity and my resolve to fight back." The editor nodded thoughtfully. "That's a powerful story. Would you consider sharing it with our readers?" I think many would find it inspiring, especially other creative entrepreneurs facing challenges. I agreed to the interview, feeling it was important to share my experience. When the article was published the following month, it generated an overwhelming response. I received hundreds of messages from designers and small business owners who had faced similar situations of theft and betrayal. Many had given up, believing they had no recourse. My story showed them another path, one of resilience and strategic thinking. As for James, last I heard, he was working retail at a mall department store, his reputation in the fashion industry permanently ruined. No one would partner with him or hire him for any position of responsibility after what he had done became public knowledge. The fashion world can be cutthroat, but it has little tolerance for those who steal from designers. His betrayal had cost him everything he had worked for. The irony wasn't lost on me. James had tried to bankrupt me by stealing my designs, but in the end, his theft had made me more successful than ever. The bankruptcy sign that once hung in my window had been replaced with a new one: Sarah Mitchell Designs, original, authentic, unmistakable. And this time, nobody would dare copy my work again. Perhaps the most valuable lesson I learned wasn't about business or even design, but about trusting my instincts. I had sensed something was wrong long before I found concrete evidence. In the future, I wouldn't ignore those feelings. Success in fashion and in life requires more than just talent and hard work. It requires wisdom about who to trust and the courage to stand up for yourself when others try to take what's yours. My experience changed how I approach my business in many ways. I now mentor young designers, helping them protect their work and navigate the complex fashion industry. I've become an advocate for stronger legal protections for fashion designs and more transparent business practices throughout the industry. And most importantly, I've reclaimed the joy in my work, the pure creative pleasure that drew me to fashion in the first place. When I look back at that moment of standing before my shop with the "going out of business" sign, I realize it wasn't an ending but a beginning. Sometimes the most authentic creations emerge from our darkest moments, when we have nothing left to lose. My designs now carry that hard-won wisdom within them, beauty born of adversity, strength disguised as delicacy, just like their creator.